Warning: this podcast discusses paranormal activity and other topics some might find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Hey guys, this is your host Ashley and welcome to Ghost Gossip. Man, oh man, it has been a hot minute. How are you doing? I am winding down. It is finally summer, the kids are out of school, and I am able to have a little bit of free time. I had a listener reach out to me the other day and was like, "Excuse me." She didn't say that, but that's how I read it in my head. "Excuse me, ma'am, where are you?" But it read, "Where's the podcast?" or "What happened to the podcast? I miss it." And that was kind of an eye-opener for me because I forget that I have people out there that listen. And so I'm super excited. Thank you so much for reaching out. That kind of was the little kick in the pants I needed to get down here. I know I don't owe you an explanation, but just so you know, life gets busy. Sometimes our little hobbies, which this is kind of what this is for me right now, it takes a backseat. So I'm here, I'm around. Thank you for reaching out. I really do appreciate you reaching out because it made me feel good. Okay, so here's just an update on the house. Everything's been fairly quiet. We did have one instance where the motion light came on when he was in the bedroom talking to his dad on the phone. And then again, when I woke up the other morning, like the moment I opened my eyes, the light came on and it made me jump out of my skin. But other than that, it's been quiet. I've heard a few disembodied voices. I had one say, and I think I did talk about this last time, I had one call out mommy. And then a few days after, or maybe a week after, I heard somebody say, "Hello," from the closet in my bedroom where the motion light goes off. It was one of those moments where I was waking up and it was about 5:30. My alarm goes off about 5:30. And so I was still kind of in that half asleep, half awake. But when I heard it, my eyes shot open. It was very much real. It was not in a dream state. So it was, as my husband said, that's a little creepy. So it was a little creepy to hear a voice coming from the closet. Now, I'm sure, we could go round and round and talk about, what it could have been, but I know what I heard. And it was a hello. Just like that. It wasn't a voice that I recognized. It kind of sounded like me or my mother, but I have said before, I have heard my name called before in a different house. When I lived as a single mother in a completely different area than where I live now, I would hear somebody call out, "Ashley, Ashley." And it would really make my skin tingle because I didn't know where it was coming from. And I know it wasn't just me because I had 2 dogs at the time and both of them would perk their ears up and run out in the hall like somebody was there. It was wild. So hearing those voices, I guess that makes me sound a little insane. I hear voices, but hearing those voices come out of the darkness or when there is no one, period, it really makes you scratch your head. But I digress. Now, since my last episode, I talked about how I might have seen something move into the guest room where Wayne is to be, is where I've kind of put him. Like, you're allowed to stay here. If you're going to be here, you stay there. Now, since nothing's really been happening, it's been very quiet. And like I explained to my husband, it's almost still. Like, it's so quiet, it's still. It's almost like nothing is moving in the house until the past 2 weeks. And now it's like the energy is shifting again. There's movement in the air. The air is charged. The atmosphere is charged. Is something there? I reached out to my ancestors and I just called out one day and I was praying and like, "Oh, okay, Grandpa, Papa Sam, Bet, Catherine, and then Daniel's family, please watch over our house. Please watch over us. Please take care of us. The energy in the house is negative." And I was calling out around March and April, just calling out for help. And I truly believed they showed up. 2 weeks ago, I was having this vision of this woman in my head. It came out of nowhere. I've had premonitions here and there before, but nothing really vivid. I could go into it and, pick it apart, but I just had this vision of this woman. She had a muumuu on. She was probably about my size, maybe smaller, but not bigger. I'm not a small woman. I'm not a skinny woman, but I'm kind of like what the kids would say, thick. And so this woman was not overly large, but not a small lady. And she was broad. She had curly, dark hair and glasses. And I could see her in my mind. I don't know where I saw her. I don't know why she's in my head, but I could see her vividly. But her face was, I could recognize it if I saw her, but I couldn't draw her. I hope that makes sense. So I kept asking Daniel. I knew she wasn't a family member of mine. So I kept asking him, what does this grandparent look like? Now, he comes from a divorced family, and so he has multiple grandmothers. I knew it wasn't my grandmother because one of my grandmothers is still alive and the other one doesn't look like her. My gut feeling was telling me it was somebody on his side of the family. So I kept asking, and he's like, no. We were talking about it again this past weekend. I was like, I'm seeing this woman and I don't know who she is, but why is she in my head? Why am I seeing her? And he said, what does she look like again? So I told him, she's got short, curly or wavy hair with glasses. She's in a muumuu and it's yellow. He looked over at me and it was like this realization. He said, that sounds just like my grandmother. And I said, I thought you told me it wasn't your grandmother's. He said, no, I told you it wasn't Freddie. But that's not Freddie. That's not who I'm talking about. That sounds like my mom's mom. He's like, try to find a picture of her. So I start looking through his mom's Facebook and I found this picture of an older woman and I was like, that's her. And it was his grandmother. I was covered in chill bumps from head to toe. And I was like, that is her. That is who I'm seeing. His face was priceless. And he's like, that's really cool. And I was like, I can't believe that. It just surprised me. So on today's episode, since I really don't have a lot going on in my house or any kind of listener happenings, I wanted to share with you my background. Who am I? What kind of led me here? Why do I believe in the paranormal? Why do I believe spirits exist? Why do I believe energy can be negative? It can be positive. What has led me where I am today? So I'm going to take you back. Way back to when I was 13 years old. I don't math well, so I'm not sure what year that was. I'm thinking it was about 1997, and that was when I had my first paranormal experience. It was like the moment I hit maturity or puberty, things shifted in my life. I started having experiences I could not explain. It started when my grandfather passed away. He died this summer. I was 13 years old. I think I was going into 7th grade. I just finished 6th grade. And we weren't all that close. He wasn't very kind. He's a Puerto Rican man who was very blunt, very direct, and he hurt our feelings sometimes. And so I kind of withdrew from him. And I loved him, but he always made me feel bad about myself. So I didn't talk to him much. Didn't really have a huge relationship with that grandfather. But when he died, I remember going to the hospital and he had a heart attack. And he was very bloated and in the bed, and they wanted to bring me in. And I can still see him to this day, and I couldn't go in there. I couldn't go in there because he scared me. He was dead, and that scared me. And my mom's like, do you want to go say goodbye? And I'm like, no. So she didn't force me, and we left. There was a funeral and a memorial service, and after that, it was done. It was my first real experience with death and how final it was. We went home because we went to Augusta, Georgia for that. That's where they lived. And we were in Greenville, South Carolina. And I had this overwhelming regret that I didn't say goodbye. Even though we weren't close, I was staying up at night and I was processing what death was. And it was real late at night. I was laying in bed and it was summer, so I didn't have school the next day. And all of a sudden, in the darkness, I smelled him. He had a very distinct smell, kind of like Brute or whatever that, I hate to say it like this, but that old man cologne, you know somebody wore it who was an elderly gentleman. You know that smell. If you smelled it, it's undeniable. It's like aftershave or something, and it's super strong. And my whole room all of a sudden was filled with that smell. And I just sat up, and it was him. I couldn't see him, but I could feel him. And that was my very first experience with somebody who had passed away. My next experience after that was with a dog. It wasn't even my dog. I went to babysit somebody, and I was super excited because it was my first babysitting job. I was probably 13 or 14, and my parents' friends had a little boy. They wanted to go out to dinner, so they were like, Ashley will babysit. So I'm super excited. We drove to their house, and I ran to the door because I was hyped. I was going to babysit. I had my first real babysitting gig. You could not live with me. I was excited. So I ran to the door and I rang the doorbell. My parents were a couple feet, behind me. They weren't right on my heels or anything. They were coming up the sidewalk, and I could hear a dog barking inside. I am a dog lover, and I got super excited because I was like, no way. I get to babysit and they have a dog. Yes, best night ever, right? So the people opened the door, and I looked down because it sounded like a little dog, and there was no dog. And so I was like, where did that dog go? So I kind of looked at him bewildered because where did the dog go? I just heard the dog. But I didn't ask. They left. I hung out with the little boy, put him to bed. I could hear the dog bark here and there, but I did not want to snoop through these people's houses. I was very meek and mild as a child. I would not kind of step on anybody's toes. So I didn't go digging through their house or peeking indoors. After the little boy went to bed, I went and sat on the couch, and I waited for my parents to come home with their friends. So the moment they got in, and I looked up at them, and I said, oh, by the way, where's your dog? The stillness in the air is something I will never forget. Everybody stopped in their tracks. They looked at each other, and the husband said, our dog passed away a few months ago. Excuse me? I didn't know what to think. And I was like, I thought I heard it barking. And he said, you did. We hear it too, but we never know who actually hears it, so we don't say anything. Luckily, my parents heard it as well. And my dad had said, I asked them the same question after we left. We didn't want to freak you out. It did not freak me out. I am not the type normally to be freaked out by the paranormal. So I just thought that was so cool that I had experienced a ghost dog. My next experience was much sadder. When I was 18 years old, one of my best friends in high school died in a tragic car accident. It was horrible. If I talk too much about the car accident, I will bust out into tears. So I'm going to just keep to the basic details of my experience with her. Catherine was beautiful. She had long blonde hair. I've talked about her in my last Listener Happenings episode. She was tall. She could have modeled. She was absolutely stunning. She was breathtaking. Her personality radiated from her core, and her beauty was, her smile was infectious. I remember she came our sophomore year to the high school I attended, and I remember this beautiful blonde making faces at me in Spanish class. And I was very shy, so I kept looking at her and looking away. And from that day forward, we were very instantly connected. A few days before she died, I had found a cat in my neighborhood. I called Cat. So I called my friend Cat and said, I found a cat and I need to take it to get it put down. It's not doing well. And she took me to Applebee's after, and she gave me a gift. And she said, you're going to go on to do amazing things. And no matter what, we will always be friends. And even if we don't see each other for years and years, because you're off doing wonderful things, because I was going to college, but she wasn't. We can link back up and talk like we had no time in between. She died a few days later. I truly believe, even though it was a very tragic car accident, somehow she knew. And she was saying goodbye to me in her own little way. Her death was unexpected and happened on homecoming. And I was devastated because she was supposed to be with me that night, and she didn't show up. And I got a phone call from one of my other friends letting me know that she had died. I was devastated. I felt so guilty. I felt like it was my fault, that if she had just been with me, she wouldn't have died. I would lay up for hours just crying. And my mom did the best she could. I was a teenager. I didn't know. She never experienced a loss such as that. So she was just trying to help me do what I needed to do and help me cope. And one night I was laying in bed and I was asleep. But I wasn't sound asleep. Like I was in a fog. My body had given out because I was exhausted from nights of not sleeping. And it was after her funeral. And my bed, somebody sat on my bed. I felt the pressure. And I turned over and I saw her. And she had her hair pulled up. And she had on a burgundy shirt with blue jeans. And she was hanging her head. And she said, "Please don't be mad at me." And I said, "I'm not mad at you. I miss you." And she said, "I love you." And I said, "I love you too." And then she was gone. I just stared after she was gone because I couldn't believe it. And I thought it was a dream. But thankfully I have a mom who believes. And I remember telling her the next day, and she said she can't rest. She couldn't rest without talking to you. Catherine, I love Catherine, and I truly believe she's my guardian angel when it comes to cars. I have fallen asleep at the wheel before, and it was like something jolted me awake. I have had a friend almost wreck, and with me in the passenger side, and the car corrected itself by itself. It is, you can argue with me, or you can tell me whatever you think, and I will truly believe always that Catherine is with me and has protected me from several car accidents in my life, because she doesn't want me to die like she did. Okay, that was the hardest one. I am blessed that I have those memories. Another thing I've had with Kat, another experience I had with Kat was actually in my dreams, and this one I truly don't know if it was her or if it was in my dreams, but it was very vivid. It was a lucid dream. It happened when I was about 19 or 20 years old, and I could still vividly remember it. It is a memory. Like I actually lived it. When Catherine passed away, the yearbook asked for pictures for the yearbooks. They were going to make her a page. And her mother asked for the pictures that people donated. And I never got my pictures back. I was in college. I went to USC, University of South Carolina. And I was on campus in my dream. And I look up and she's standing there in the same outfit, her burgundy shirt with her blue jeans with her hair pulled up. And she had this disposable camera. I'm not sure if you remember those. And she said, "Come here, let's take some pictures." And I was like, "How are we going to develop these?" And she's like, "We can't, but you will have them. You will have them, and nobody can take those from you." And she goes, "You gave my mom your pictures." Y'all, she's beautiful. And I know. I refuse to believe otherwise, that wasn't her coming to me. I haven't seen her since. I believe she watches over me, though. My next experience was after I was married. I was in an abusive relationship. After Catherine died, my life kind of went downhill. I sunk into a very deep depression and my mental health wasn't great. I got with a man who was supposed to love me, but he didn't. Not fully, not truly. It was more possession than it was love. And he was an alcoholic. He would go out and disappear for days on end and not come home, and then come home and we would fight, or he would put his hands on me and it was toxic. It was horrible. It was a horrible experience. And I remember after my grandfather died, and this is my other grandfather, my dad's dad, who I was very close with, and I was very close to my dad's father, and he passed away in 2005. I got married in 2006, and it was a night where we had fought and he took off. I was laying there crying because my life, I didn't even recognize my life. I didn't recognize who I was. Life was not good. And I remember just praying that, like, why can't I just die? And I wasn't suicidal, but I didn't want to live anymore. I wasn't going to do anything, but I just would wish I would go to sleep and not wake up. And I remember laying there just crying and wondering what happened with my life. Where did I go wrong? And my master bedroom looked out and I could see the light from the backyard. There was like a street light in my backyard and a figure appeared, and it was probably about 6 foot tall, and it blocked out the light, but you could see the light around the figure. And I knew in that moment my grandfather, my Papa Sam, was with me. I instantly got calm, and it was almost like he was telling me, you're okay. It's going to be okay. You're not alone. The moment I calmed down, he disappeared. I had another experience with an entity, I should say, that I don't know where it came from. Well, I do know where it came from, but I did not know him personally. I had a friend that lived in a neighborhood, and her neighbor took his own life, and it was in a horrible manner. And they say that, or she was telling me stories of how he was haunting his family and how he would play tricks on them, flip pictures upside down, move things. And at the time I was like, okay. On the way home, I was in the car and my body covered with chill bumps. And I was like, oh God, there's somebody here. I get home and I feel completely uneasy. I could not see anybody. I could not smell anybody, but I could feel somebody. And kind of like my life now, the lights started coming on. I would go and turn them off, walk back to my bedroom, the light would be on again. Finally, I just shut the bathroom door so I didn't have to see the light anymore coming on from the back door. Well, then my dog, I had a Jack Russell at the time. His hair stood on end and he just started growling at something coming from that direction. From the direction of the window to the backyard where the back door was. It was the back door light that kept coming on. He just growled, and I just was petting him. I was like, it's okay. It is okay. I didn't sleep all night. The next day, I was sick to my stomach, and I called my friend who practices, I'm not sure if she still does, but she was Wiccan. And I called her, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I think this guy came home with me from my friend's neighborhood. He's playing tricks on me. He cannot stay here. I don't know what to do. She said, get your friend over there, demand him to leave, and make her leave and take him with her. And I was like, seriously? She's like, yes, just do it. So I called my friend and she came over and she looked at me and I said, you have got to leave. You are not welcome here. Get out of my house and go back home. You are not welcome here. This is my house. My friend looked at me like I was insane. She got in her car and she left, and I never had anything like that happen again with that entity or spirit or whatever he was. A menace. That's what I believe he was, a menace. After my divorce from my abusive husband, everything kind of toned down. I had an experience with my daughter's father in our house. There was an old lady that passed away, and she was there. She wasn't a problem. She was curious, and I could feel her. After Daisy was born, she left. And then the experiences stopped for a very long time. And I believe it was because I was a single mom and I was completely consumed with my life, and anything that I was experiencing, I didn't feel because I was numb. I was going through so much. I was going through the motions. I couldn't function. I couldn't take in any other energy other than my own and my daughter's. I've always been a good read on people. I pick up their energy with the living. I can usually tell. I can usually sense when people are upset, even if they're not with me. But during that time in my life when I was a single mother, it was hit or miss. I didn't feel anything in my house. I would hear my name being called, but I didn't feel anything in my house. But I was always a good read on people. Everything fired back up when I moved into this house. And I truly believe that my gifts started when I was a teenager. They developed, and then I muffled them. I ignored them through my 20s into my early 30s. And then now as a 38-year-old, I'm not severely depressed anymore. I'm still anxious, but I'm open. I'm open-minded. I have opened myself up, and I want to learn, and I want to connect more with that gift or that ability that I have. I want to be able to embrace it, and I believe in energy. I believe in good energy. I believe that there's negative energy, and I believe that places hold energy, just like people hold energy. And I think it's really cool that I'm able to walk into a place and say, like, this place feels really good. I really like this place. This feels nice and light and welcoming. And then there's other places I walk into and I'm like, man, this is sad. We were looking at houses, and I went into one house and I told my husband, I was like, somebody died. Somebody died recently of COVID. And so because I am nosy, I Googled the address and found the owners, and I found out that the husband had actually passed away 6 months prior to my viewing of the house. And I told my husband, and he's like, geez, Ashley. And I'm like, I don't know. So when I walked into my house, there was no energy. It was just kind of stagnant because it had been empty for so long. It felt weird in the basement, but I think all basements kind of feel weird. It feels weird in the upstairs guest room where I have told Wayne that he can live. It feels weird in my studio, which I love my studio. It's like a little mermaid cove, but when I come down here, I feel like I'm being watched. And if you could see my studio, there is no windows. There's one door, and I keep it locked when I'm in here. But there is a mirror behind me. I need to take it down, but I didn't paint behind it, so that's why it stays up. Now, when I bought my house was wall-to-wall mirrors. Take it for what you think or what you will, but if you are spiritual and you believe in the paranormal, you know what they say about mirrors. I think my house sitting for as long as it sat vacant for 4 years, wall-to-wall mirrors. I think it became a portal. I think there's a giant portal in my house, and nothing really happens much anymore, but I have truly called out to the heavens for help. It's nice now. It's calm. I do think that the previous homeowner is still here. I think he lingers some days. Other days he doesn't pay us much mind. Whether he stays here or he comes and goes, I don't know, but I do feel him some days, and I have come to the realization and the acceptance that I just greet him when I come home, and I'm like, hey, Ghosty, what's up? When my lights do come on, I'm like, okay, good morning to you too, or good night. And I just try to embrace it as a blessing. There's nothing bad in here. Yes, I've been scared. Yes, I've had sleep paralysis. Yes, I felt like I've been targeted before, but as of right now, everything is nice. As we draw closer to the summer solstice, it makes me wonder if things will pick up. Now, before I close, I want to ask you, because I've been wondering this, do you believe in the ghost hunting shows on YouTube or on TV? Any of those? I watch those on YouTube, and I'm fascinated by them, but it makes me wonder, like, are those real? What do you think? I want to do an episode where we talk about those. I want to hear your input, so I would really appreciate it if you'd reach out. I'm going to put a box in my Q&A, and you can let me know. I want to know, do you believe those? Do you think that they are turning the flashlights on and off? Do you think they trigger motion sensors? Do you think that EMF readers are picking up the energy? Or are they picking up electrical? I'm really curious because the motion light in my closet has gone off and there's absolutely nothing that would trigger it. It's not hooked up to any wires. It is a true battery operated motion light that only is triggered by motion. And you have to move past it in order to trigger it. So that makes me wonder, do you think that intelligent spirits use things like that to try to communicate? Or do you think maybe Daniel's right and we have a giant bug in our closet, a giant bug that we have never seen? So that's just what my next episode is going to be about. Do you believe in these YouTube shows? Do you believe that all these things that they're experiencing with the REM pods and the spirit talkers, do you think those are real? Let me know what you think. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about my past history and my experiences. And until next time, they'll see you later.